welcome back, Doodle Crew fans. I'm here sitting down again with another artist interview. Thanks, Randel, for sitting down and chatting with me.
You're very welcome. Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to chat with you. So, jumping right in, because this is a favorite question I like to ask, and I think it's especially funny for us. How did we meet, Randel?
Well, as many people on the Doodle Crew have probably already said at this point, we met through the Art Institute. Emily and I went to the Art Institute here in Pittsburgh and both studied the animation program, and then obviously, bonded over Sailor Moon and all those nerdy animation things that we absolutely love.
Yes. I was so excited to find someone who was as jazzed about Sailor Moon as I was, because that was not something I had in high school. Like, other of my friends, they liked video games, they like cartoons, but no, having Sailor Moon friends, I was like, oh, this is dope. I'm so excited. Yeah, no, I think it's funny, and it's been a very funny running joke because it's literally the second question that I ask people if they're an Art Institute of Pittsburgh alumni. And I love it because when I first was thinking about putting the Doodle Crew together, you and I still keep in constant contact and we share art. And I was like, oh, of course. But as it expanded from there, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just all of our friends that we went to animation school with, and then the extra people that I know from Comic-Con who also happen to go to this school.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the thread that binds us all together, whether we want it to or not. We keep finding
really
each other.
It is. It's that weird Pittsburgh draw thing. There were so many from my area that ended up in Pittsburgh either through college or work, and then it's got some weird Pittsburgh magic to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you just go to a con and we'll be sitting there talking to each other, and it's like you say the Art Institute and everybody's ears perk up. They're like, oh, wait, what? Are you talking about my school?
It is. It's too funny. I'm very excited, though, to be back at conventions at some point and have that again, because I've missed
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about school and everything, when it comes to your life now, is art your primary job and or career?
Sure. So there is an aspect of art to my career. I actually work for a company here in Pittsburgh and do video editing for my main job, and some graphics and things. But then, I have art on the side, and I keep that as my little personal treat, so I'm not over exhausting myself doing art. So unlike you, I do not take on tons and tons and tons of commissions because I value my free time, and I keep my art to myself.
No, we were chatting a little bit before we started the interview, and it's very much that. I have always been impressed with your ability to kind of just keep some of your private art time to yourself and keep the fun in it, where I'm just I'm just going to do all the things all the time, every minute of every day. And I also find it funny because I feel like you've been surrounded by people who are like that pretty much since college. Because, Sarah being your former roommate and all of this stuff. And I was like, no, the rest of us are just nuts. And you're just yeah, you guys are crazy. I'm just going to be over here doing this because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You weirdos.
But that's also why people actually know you by your art online, and they see me and they're like, oh, you do art? Okay, I guess. Oh yeah, there it is. I had to dig down a while, but I see some.
Well, I think it's cool because I like the stuff that you do, and I like being able to chat art with you, but you had branched out into creating new and different types of art. Obviously we've been going through different styles, but also different ways. I have some of your framed pieces in my kitchen when you were doing these awesome cell pieces. So I'm always happy whenever you are creating art, because I was like, no, it's going to be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like I have to reinvent myself every so often just to switch it up and not get bored with what I've been doing. Still don't know anatomy very well. Wish I would get myself to actually focus on that, but hey, why not? Let's just try a new style today or a new medium, and then forget that the rest of the body exists below the shoulders. That's perfectly fine with me.
And it was just headshots for the rest of your days, and you were happy.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, you draw such great faces. So I'm like, I know, because it's the only thing I draw. That's the secret. Just draw that one thing, and people will be like, wow, that's so great. Yeah, it's all I can do, but you're very welcome.
Oh, I love love it, which I think it leads into perfectly into how did you find your niche when it came to art? But I think it's cool, and we've talked about this not necessarily as far as niche, but as far as finding like our own personal style and our brand, and if people can recognize our art without seeing our name attached to it. And I think I've seen that in your art for a long time that I've always been very envious of, because you have a just kind of an inherent style that fits you. And I don't know that I can describe it more than that, but I always know your art when I see it.
Well, that's good to hear, because I don't always know my art when I see it. Because some people have that very distinctive way of making faces or this and that. And like I just said, with always experimenting and trying new styles, sometimes I have the really thick outlines around my art. Sometimes I will take the black and change it to colors. Sometimes I'll try and do it without any line art. So I always worry about that when I post things. Like, does it still look like me? Because a lot of it is fan art too. And I try to kind of like mimic that style of the original series. And then, it's like, I don't know if it's still mine, but I guess based on what Kristen from Doodle Crew has said at various points, I could tell that was your art because you draw cheeks a very particular way. Like, yes. I have a certain way that I draw like a face outline, I guess, that you can immediately tell that's mine.
And it's funny because, at least for me, I know that's not something like I'm doing consciously, either the way that I shape faces or the way that I draw eyes. Like, I think about it because it's my style, but I'm not specifically being like, okay, it's got to be this curve like this. I'm like, that's just how my brain puts that information out there. So yeah, it's a weird thing when it comes to like embracing your style, because I'm just like, is this it? Is this the thing? Or is it this other thing?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. No, I'm always impressed because you managed to get so much like crazy detail into your busts and your headshots and stuff. And I do not have the patience for it. Like, to sit there and do all of these gorgeous like hair strands and stuff. And I was like, nope, give me one big clump of hair and I'm done. Checked off, on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's curse. It absolutely is. Every Inktober, when I would actually do it, and I would sit there and be like, you know what? I'm going to draw lightning from Final Fantasy 13 today, and I'm going to render every single piece of hair. I'm going to make sure I get all those buckles and belts and all of them, pleats and sweater texture and everything in my inks, even though, I should be doing that stuff in Photoshop like a smart person.
Yeah. No, and it's so funny because I know I will get to a point where it's literally past the point of no return. Like, could I still switch this to Photoshop? I'm like, why would you at this point? You've spent so much time inking it. You might as well just finish it because here we are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. At that point, it's just like brute pushing through it. I don't even want to deal with this. I just have to do it how I'm doing it.
Yep. There's a lot of spite in my art sometimes where I'm just like, well, fine, I'll do it this way because this is what I did to myself. So out of all those projects that you've done either yourself or things that you've made as gifts for other people or just projects you've been a part of, what is a project you're really proud of that you've worked on?
Okay, so I would say a project that I'm proud of would have to be, so I do a lot of perler bead art. I don't know if anybody out there who's watching this is familiar, but they're these little spherical, cylindrical beads. You put them on pegs and iron them. And a lot of people used to do them as kids just for like little crafts to make keychains and things. But in the years since then, a lot of nerdy people online have figured out that it's a really great medium for doing pixel art from video games. So I have some massive perler bead projects that I've done over the years, some of which are probably 2 feet tall. I would say they're pretty significantly large. And I think that's probably the project I'm the most proud of because, I look at it and I can see the time that I put into it, and it's just like that sense of satisfaction with working with such a limited color palette and being able to actually use the color theory that I was apparently taught in college. And saying, oh, hey, look, some of that actually did stick because I learned how to like place certain colors next to each other to mimic what it should be, even though I don't have that exact color. Yeah. So I think that's probably, yeah.
Well, and I am so blown away by your perler bead stuff. And I am very selfishly lucky because you made a piece for me of one of my characters from my comics. So I have that and it looks so cool. And I keep trying to figure out different ways to like take it with me, but I don't want to break it. So I've just like, I keep it very flat because I don't want it to be ruined because I love it so much. But I think it's super, super cool, especially with like tiny 8-bit, 16-bit tiny characters. If you just blow them up as they are, it's very hard to tell what is actually happening because it's so few pixels. So the way that you're able to translate that very small amount of information to something that is so much bigger, and you can still tell, oh, that looks like Mega Man, it looks like the character that it's supposed to, like, that is so cool to me because it's not the way that my brain works when it comes to doing art like that.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things that I just never realized I had a knack for until I started doing it. And now I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. I like doing this as a way to just like unwind and sit down and listen to some music or, you know, watch some cartoons and just sit there and place pegs on bars for hours and hours.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. Again, also kudos to you because you can actually, you know, distance yourself and do a little bit of relaxation while you do art. So now you've mentioned, you know, obviously you have worked traditionally, you work digitally, you work in perler beads. What is a medium that you really, really love to work in?
Oh, I would have to say probably colored pencils. I mean, I don't do it as often anymore, but just like Prismacolor pencils with really nice blending, like the waxy sort of colored pencils. I love using those whenever I decide to be artsy and actually draw something in a sketchbook. That's one of the things that I love to do. I used to use markers a lot, and I love those, but I've not yet branched into the world of adult markers. So I probably should, but I also don't want to spend that much money.
It's so expensive. It's so expensive to be an artist as an adult. Like if you want the nice markers, they cost a lot of money. It's just some sick and twisted game that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, your color, I'm always impressed too because you get really great coverage with your colored pencils, either by layering up or just by really like working into a piece. So it has great vibrancy to it, even though like you can still see some of like the texture strokes, which is very, very cool. So, all right. So when you're comfortable in, now moving on to what is a medium that scares you or intimidates you?
Well, anything physical, because I'm definitely way out of practice. And even just like last week, I was drawing in a sketchbook for the first time in I don't know how long. I've gotten so used to just using my tablet and drawing straight in Photoshop or something. And without having that curve correction or symmetry or something, and then I draw it and I look at it and I'm like, oh, that eye is not the same as the other eye. They're sisters, not twins. Which I know is a good thing for eyebrows, not so much for eyes.
Not so much for eyes.
Yeah, no, you don't want a cute little anime girl who looks like Sloth from the Goonies. So, yeah, I think just working physically, especially like at a convention, if someone comes up and they request a commission to be drawn on the spot, and it's like, oh gosh, sure, I can do that. Let me like try and pull up this image on my phone and draw this character I've never drawn before. And also not have Photoshop to let me like free transform and correct that wonky arm I just drew. So yeah, I mean, love working with colored pencils, but the sketch from the get-go, no.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, it is always entertaining. So we've had the pleasure of getting to table with each other at conventions a couple of times. And I like it because like I'll be sitting there manically working on something because I was an idiot and said yes to taking out a commission. And you're just like, You're insane. What are you doing? Like sitting comfortably and drinking your coffee. I'm like, no, you're right. I shouldn't have said yes to 8 of them because now I have to draw 8 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. I enjoy it. I really do, or I wouldn't do it. But the ones that still to this day give me the like unlimited stress are the ones when someone, and it's a cool idea, but they'll bring a sketchbook to your table that already has art in it and you're just drawing on the next page. And all of a sudden now it's oh, if I mess this up, I can't just throw that paper away and use it for something else. Like it's in their sketchbook. So when I start doing it, I have to mean it because there's no backsies. And those are stressful ones for me.
Yeah, that would be if I was in that position and they asked me to do that, I'd probably just be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that for you. That's a cute idea, but you don't want me doing that to your sketchbook.
No, thank you.
You'll end up with 4 pages of just like an eyeball and half of a face drawn and then a giant squiggle all over it that says, I hate art.
I mean, I kind of just want that now, but
yeah.
So when it comes to, obviously, like you said, you have a diverse medium base that you work out of, but what do you do when you're fighting through an art slump? Like, how do you work yourself through that?
So I stopped doing art for 4 months. No. Well, maybe sometimes, but yeah, it depends on what it is and what it's for. If it was like Inktober where I was trying to push myself to do something each day, I just said, whatever I don't like today, I will finish this, put something out there, and then I'll try again tomorrow and see if what I like actually turns out for that one. As far as right now, if it's not for something where I have like a deadline, my go-to is if I'm really frustrated and I'm trying to draw something that's not happening, I just say, I'm not doing that today as much as I want to. Let's fall back on something that I've drawn 1,000 times. So then I'll fall back on characters that I've drawn over and over and over, just so that I'm not stressed out trying to draw something new. I know the details. I know the wardrobe. I know how the hair should be. And I think that's like a really good, like a warm up in a way. You know, even just like the basic, I'm going to doodle this kind of pose that it's not something I normally do. Oh, okay, it looks too stiff. I don't like it. But that was a warm up. So let's just keep going until something sticks.
Yeah.
So that's usually how I end up working through my frustrations and my art blocks.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of just giving yourself, like, because I'll try and draw new poses or I'll try and set up panels in new ways and do that stuff. And sometimes I just get stuck on them. So going back to, I'm like, it's okay. If we're just going to draw this cute little girl in a 3/4 view, which is what you love to do, like, it's okay to just have that. This is a thing I know I can draw. I know I can draw this fan character or something like that. And it's okay. Like, it's all right that not every single piece has to be, experimental or pushing or, testing your limits.
Right.
That's exhausting. So final question. And this one is a completely self-serving question, but I like asking it anyways. What do you like about Doodle Crew?
I like that I don't have to be on every single episode. Because if I did, I probably would have had a complete mental breakdown by now. So kudos to Emily, who is on every single episode of Doodle Crew and does a great job at actually putting things together and keeping schedules and taking on a lot of extra stress. And we all love her for it, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. No, it is a lot of fun. There's so many spreadsheets and like different channels in our Discord and try to keep it, but it would not have been successful if like my friends and people who know me and don't mind hanging out with my insanity like had said no. Like if you hadn't said yes to it, I'm like, nah, maybe we won't do it, because like again, it was a selfish thing. I was like, I want to hang out with my art friends.
Yeah,
I miss it. And we've had, obviously, like, I am not in Pittsburgh anymore, but for many, many years, we've had a standing like date where once a year I at least come down and we go to convention or we hang out and we get to have that like kind of art powwow. which
Yeah.
is super, super fun. And not having that, I'm like, but I miss it. Like we watch cartoons and we draw stuff and it's really fun.
Yeah, I do miss that for sure. And like when Kristen came to visit Pittsburgh last week, we went to a cafe here called Biddle's Escape. It's like a nice little tucked away cafe, and they have like an outdoor terrace that you can sit on. And so we got out our sketchbooks and sat there and drew and listened to crazy conversations. I'm like, oh, I've missed this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the other fun part about Doodle Crew is a lot of the prompts are things that I wouldn't necessarily think to just like sit down and draw.
Yeah.
So that little bit of extra challenge that I would never put on myself, it's kind of fun, and it breaks me out of my creative safe zone.
Yes. I have been incredibly grateful for a bunch of them. And, the fact that like we had brainstormed amongst the group a bit, but some of these even came from the audience. And I was like, oh, there's something cool. Cause, it's people being like, hey, we'd like to see you draw this. And I'm like, yeah, that's like you said, it's not something that I would have instantly gone to, but I was like, okay, no, this is good. It forces me to, try this. And like, I know I've said with a bunch of the other interviews, but also we've said to each other that, if I sign up for it, I say I'm going to be there at that date and time, but also it's not a piece that has to end up being a print for me or a sticker or anything. Like it can just be the silly art that I made on stream that day, and that can be the end of it. And I think at least for my crazy brain, the fact that it was a live stream, and so like I did still produce a product, even though I might not use that piece of art again. Like I'm like, no, it's okay. Like you were allowed to have fun, silly, goofy art time because you still made something. So it balances, the crazy in my brain. But no, I'm so happy to have you on. You always crack me up. And even if we don't have you on camera that day, you pop up and chat, and that's just super fun. So I'm so happy that you've come and hung out with us and done Doodle Crew with me.
Oh, you're welcome. You can always have my sass any day of the week. You know that.
Yes.
It just flows right out. It does not matter what day or time it is.
I like that. It's a constant in my life that I'm very happy to have. So if people want to find you, follow you, support you, see more of your awesome art, where can they go and look you up?
Yeah, so for the actual art, I would suggest following me on Tumblr. That's where I post all the sketches and different things we do here on Doodle Crew, Perler Bead projects, anything art, that's going to go up on my Tumblr. As far as everything else, I do occasionally post art on my Instagram, which is at Randy Limoges. And that one is a mix of art and mostly selfies, some a little bit more suggestive than others. No OnlyFans yet, probably not ever. But if you follow me on Instagram, you've been warned. It's not going to be all family-friendly content. You might see a butt cheek or two, just so you know.
This is true. That's why, we put the disclaimer that, Doodle Crew, we're pretty okay for the most part, but it's still an 18+ stream. Like, there might be butts. That's always just putting it out there that there might be butts.
Yeah, the subtitle to Doodle Crew, there might be butts.
There might be butts. Oh, I love it so much. Well, this is awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me, Randel. I'll take any chance to hang with you. So this is awesome.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.